Oh shit, fuck. Hi! So this isn't the kind of video that I usually do, but after putting in a decent amount of hours into the PROMOD weapons prototype playtest, which has now come to an end, and with the devs stating that there's going to be an unusually long radio silence as they begin work on the multiplayer prototype, I thought I would share some of my personal thoughts and opinions on the game so far, and yeah, maybe, hopefully, provide some kind of useful feedback. Or maybe this will all just be a rambling, incoherent mess. As I said, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Now first off, I just want to preface this with a little disclaimer. If you're here for some sort of deep dive into what happened with Battalion and if PROMOD is going to be any different and will Bulkhead be able to deliver on their promises and so on, this isn't what this is going to be. Not that that's not a valid criticism, but this is just going to be small things that I personally found interesting or noteworthy while playing the game. Also, I will be using COD 4 to illustrate some points in this video. This isn't to say that I want everything to be exactly the same as it was though. Quite the opposite, I think there are probably a ton of things you could experiment with to try to improve the game, but I thought it would be helpful to be able to go into strat mode so I can demonstrate what I'm talking about at times. I also know that it's probably kind of iffy, legally speaking, for the devs to publicly acknowledge and refer to the fact that they're basing their whole game off of COD 4. But I still think it'll probably be worth it to get some of my points across. Okay, cool, let's get into the video.
Number 1!
So first up, I just want to give a massive props to the dev team for what they managed to do with the engine. It is massively impressive to me that they managed to port that Quake engine feeling, I guess, for lack of a technical term, over to Unreal. I'm guessing a lot of that is thanks to the guy they brought on and introduced in one of the devlogs who had worked on this exact sort of thing before. But yeah, everything about the movement feels great. I'm also very glad that they've overhauled the sensitivity settings a fair bit. If you take a look at this screenshot, these are my settings in Battalion in order to mimic my personal COD 4 config as closely as possible. And these are my settings to do exactly the same thing in PROMOD. Now, someone could probably correct me if I'm wrong here, but if I remember correctly, COD 2 had a slightly higher ADS sensitivity scaling, and if Battalion was trying to emulate that, then that would obviously explain the slight differences and all. But regardless, I'm very glad that they tweaked it, and now it's completely uniform. Now, if you could please let me bind jump to mouse wheel up without it also overriding mouse wheel down at the same time, I'd happily appreciate it.
Number 2.
Now, I'm not sure if this is a deliberate design choice or simply an oversight. I first noticed this was a thing when I was playing this particular killrun map where there's a target right when you get to the top of the ladder, and purely on muscle memory from COD 4, I tried switching to my secondary while going up the ladder, and when I got to the top and I was still holding the sniper, I was kinda confused for a split second because I was fully expecting just to jump out with the AK. Now, even if it is just an oversight, let's jump back into COD 4 here and I'll show you a common scenario where this actually matters. So let's say there's an opponent here on top of hardware. I'm down below and I get the information that he's there as I'm climbing up the ladder, right? Maybe it's a call out from a teammate, maybe I hear him, doesn't really matter. Now, at this point, if you look at the bottom right, I can still switch to my deagle, or maybe I've picked up an SMG on the way. So that means I still have full control over which weapon that I want to have equipped as I emerge at the top of the ladder, right? Now, at this point, I can still choose to continue going up the ladder, and with a little bit of luck, I could probably win this fight. Don't get me wrong, it's probably a really bad fight to take, but I'm not denied that decision if I want to do that. Or another example, my teammate calls out scope on top of glitch. I worked my way down B-long, and I decide to silent climb up the ladder to kill him without giving away my position first. Now, your opponents can hear you switch weapons, so if I do that before I start climbing the ladder, he's going to hear that and he's just going to shoot me straight in the face as I peek over the edge. However, if I switch while I'm on the ladder, it doesn't actually make a sound. Now, you could probably argue whether that's a good or a bad thing, but my point here is that all these small mid-round decisions add up and essentially makes the game what it is in the long run. And I think the game is more interesting if it enables players to try to outplay each other in situations more often than not.
3, that's a magic number.
Now, I don't personally mind the HUD shake all that much. It mainly bothered me at first because the recoil camera shake, just like in COD 4, is quite minimal, and the HUD shake comes across as quite extreme initially at least, and it all felt a bit disconnected at first. I felt like I had to pull down on the mouse a lot to try to control the recoil, like I was playing CS or something, but after grinding kill run for a couple of hours, I honestly didn't even notice it anymore. However, I'm wondering if this is something that can perhaps be expanded upon a little bit more. I remember back when CSGO was still in closed beta and almost unplayable, like people were trying to figure out why all the guns felt so floaty and awkward to control. This content creator slash commentator at the time, his name is Jimmy Wessenhunt, he really hit the nail on the head when he pointed out that the camera shake needs to follow the recoil pattern. And when they implemented that, it was like night and day. It was a massive improvement.
A lot of people complain about the recoil, but I'm starting to wonder if it's the recoil or it's the feedback you get from the recoil. I know a lot of us 1.6 players, when we go take a look at Counter-Strike Go, we play it, it's hard for us to really tell what's happening. The gun reacts a lot. But you really don't feel the difference. Your bullet patterns just kind of float around. I kind of noticed that quite a bit. And not only that, with CSGO you notice that as you spray, if it goes left and right, the bullets just go left and right. Your screen doesn't really sway. If once again you look at the 1.6 patterns, as you spray, you'll notice the screen kind of jerks one way or the other. So it kind of helps decide, or helps you realize where your spray pattern's going.
Obviously, recoil isn't that big of a problem in PROMOD as it is in Counter-Strike, but I'm just curious if, let's say, for the sake of argument, that you are hell-bent on keeping the HUD shake effect. Maybe there's a way to implement it where it gives you as a player more useful, subtle feedback, as opposed to having it be a pretty straightforward screen effect. I don't know, just throwing it out there. As fun as kill run is, and I have to say that I truly enjoy this sort of competitive angle that the devs have gone for with all the leaderboards and stuff, it would have been nice to have some sort of sandbox mode like we had for the first playtest, but for the weapons this time. Now, I'm not a game developer. I have no idea how hard these things are to implement or how much work and resources go into it. But just something like a grey box or shooting range where you can get to grips with all the weapons and run around and shoot respawning targets without a timer would have been cool. Like, sometimes it's just nice to shoot bots in the head without the stress, you know?
Number 5.
As someone who played Scope for the majority of my years playing PROMOD, granted I was never at the top level or anything, and as someone who plays a lot of AWP deathmatch and things like that for fun, let me just say, the sniper right now is so quick that it was almost jarring to me at first. Sure, I quickly got used to it after playing for a bit, but my point here is that if it stays the same going forward, I think it may cause a bit of a headache later on in terms of weapon balance. The fact that you don't have to scope in again after firing a shot and you essentially get the chance to line up a perfect quick scope before you've fully reloaded, I'm not gonna lie, it makes me feel like an absolute turret. Now, a counter argument to that would be that in COD 2 you could just say scoped in all the time, that was all fine. But then you had the whole hold breath mechanic to keep the scope from swaying and so on. If you take a look at the subreddits for any of the big popular shooters at the moment, you'll see that people, regardless of skill level it seems, are just very good with these weapons in this day and age. And I think if you make it slightly too forgiving to use, once everyone gets to grips with the movement and starts perfectly jiggle and shoulder peek in corners and so on, it's gonna be incredibly hard as a rifler to try to bait out a shot from a sniper only to have him reset and re-peek in an instant. Or hey, maybe I'm just overreacting. The truth is, it is impossible to tell whether this is at all a slightly valid concern or not until a multiplayer prototype is revealed and we get the chance to see what the player models are like in terms of perceived movement speed, animations, peeker's advantage, and so on. So yeah, we'll have to put a pin in it for now, but I am curious to see how it pans out, because right now I am pretty skeptical.
Number 6 with extra dip.
I'm gonna get ahead of myself here and talk about something that's probably coming further down the line and kinda related to the weapons, but ultimately has absolutely nothing to do with this particular playtest, and that's utility. In one of the devlogs, they talked about how they weren't gonna just remake everything again, but make changes to the formula where they deem necessary. Now, among other things, they're redesigning Search and Destroy, essentially making a new competitive game mode, and as someone who has been around the arena FPS scene and seen countless titles come and go because they only served their core audience and didn't really bring anything earth-shatteringly new to the table, I think this is a good thing. Now, one thing I would personally like to see experimented with is making flashes and other types of utility a more viable option than in the past. Perfect flashes and teamwork is one of my favorite things to witness. And you would see PROMOD teams use a flash here and there from time to time, but mainly to deal with rushes. There's the bricks one from back of A of backlot, another common one over the bins on crash, and the market rooftop on city streets and so on. But once you got past like the first 15 seconds and into the mid round and then post plant situations, you kinda needed a smoke. Like a lot of it came down to the map design as well. There was always a cross to get to the bomb, so you needed a smoke for that. There was rarely a safe plant on any other maps, like you could always get shot from 15 different angles while planting or defusing, so you basically needed 2 smokes for that, one to bait out the set nades and one for actually covering the bomb. So you just naturally could always use a smoke rather than a flash, and that meta never really changed. Therefore I think it would be cool to see if you could somehow make flashes and other types of utility have that same mid-round viability as a smoke has. Now, giving every player both a smoke and a flash might be a bit too chaotic. You know, the game is supposed to be quite fast-paced, everyone is spread out all over the map trying to shoot each other in the back as opposed to doing like a coordinated execute or something like that. So that might devolve into something rather messy quite quickly. So I don't really have a well thought out idea of how you would potentially go about doing all that, but just to reiterate what Brammer said in one of the devlogs, the idea is to take this game that we all love and not just remake it, but improve upon it. Now, we've gone from COD 2, where you only had 1 smoke per team and everyone just smoked mid every round, to COD 4, where you had 5 smokes per team, and you actually started to see creative strats coming out from teams here and there.
They can get that main man down in the team, but it's been a quick bomb plant once again by Mazzarini. They haven't managed to shut him down, so they're now left with a 4-man defense. And he's going to come leaping around the side, shuts down Xander mid-air, Neo takes down Rucko, Mazzarini on fire here, shutting down FaZe. Suddenly down to a 4-on-2, Mazzarini takes down Gus, Mazzarini on the hat-trick already.
So my question is, what's the next level of that? I think that should be the goal. Like, what's the next evolution of that? That not only improves upon what we had before, but at the same time doesn't try to turn the game into something it's not, like CS or Valorant or what have you. And I don't really have the answer to that, but I know I'd like to see it, whatever it is. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this video. I hope it wasn't a complete waste of time and I managed to get some of my points across. If you made it all the way through, congratulations, well done. If you want to see me go through all the kill run and jumper maps, I'll have links to those videos on screen right now so you can check those out if you want to. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me. Take it easy folks, bye.